First time?
You're new here, aren't
Someday, somewhere, I'll make a difference.
It's a mockery.
I mean, we're not some deep space franchise. This station is about something.
The year is 2023. The name of the podcast, Babylon 5, for the first time.
Welcome to Babylon 5 for the first time, not a Star Trek podcast. My name is Jeff Akin, and I am watching Babylon 5 for the first time.
And I'm Brent Allen, and I'm also watching Babylon 5 for the very first time. We are veteran Star Trek podcasters watching this show, Babylon 5, for the first time, searching for what we like to call those Star Trek-like messages within the series and trying to decide just how much we like the series as well.
And I promise you, this is not a podcast about Star Trek, but we are Star Trek fans. It's
Are you
not.
sure?
I'm 100% sure.
This is not a Star Trek podcast.
It's not. It's literally in the name, not a Star Trek podcast. So if you think we are, listen to this part of the show and also read the title. It's right there. Not a Star Trek podcast, but we are fans of the franchise. And we're also podcasters that talk about the franchise. So the references to Star Trek are sure to find their way into this. So to keep us honest, we play the rule of 3. That means each one of us gets up to and no more than 3 references per episode.
That's it. 3. 1, 2, 3. No substitutions, exchanges, or refunds.
Hey, Brent.
Hey, Jeff.
We have a 5-star review.
Oh, yes.
This is from Apple Podcasts, and I love this name. I was Melvined says...
I catch that reference.
It's
awesome.
So good. Oh, I was Melvined.
Dude, that's like a deep cut Star Trek reference too.
Exactly.
Right?
That's so good. Well, I was Melvined says, this is the one. I'm so glad I found this podcast. Babylon 5 is a complex TV series that requires real attention, an appreciation of character development, and the ability to detect and understand nuance. Brent and Jeff are absolutely those people. The sound quality is incredible, absolutely the best of the other great B5 podcasts out there, and these two really work well together. It's refreshing and exciting to hear real professionals doing their thing. This podcast lets me relive some of the greatest times of my life. I was just out of university when Babylon 5 started airing. Bright-eyed and naive, B5 did more to prepare me for the real world than uni did. So thank you, Brent and Jeff, for letting me see this series again through the eyes of someone watching it for the first time. I highly recommend this podcast, even if you haven't watched Babylon 5 before. Their insights into this masterpiece are stunning.
Wow. Thank you. I got Melvined.
They called us a professional.
We're professionals. You know, Jeff, I don't, have we talked about this on air? I know you and I've had conversations, at least off mic, about it. The sound quality is a thing that for Jeff and I is a value point.
Yes.
Like it's a shared core value point. And Jeff, I don't know if you've ever had a podcasting partner who didn't care that much about the sound. I have, and that sucks.
That's why when you and I first started talking about this, you know, we'd worked a little bit before on your podcast, Beam Me Up, a Star Trek podcast, but we were still getting to know each other. And I was just like, I will edit this because I didn't know, you know, right, and I'm just like, I've had those people. Oh yeah, I'll edit. And no, you won't.
Yeah, it's it is a real value point, and thankfully Jeff and I both have a background in broadcasting and it's where I think we're really very much on the same level as that. So thank you for noticing that. I'm going to stop there before I offend some of our other podcasting friends, because we're friends with everybody out there.
They're all great. And I love too that they said that they are great. A lot of great podcasts out there. I have one more that I'm going to share here, and it's a little different than we've shared in the past. And this is a coming clean for our YouTube audience.
Uh-oh.
On our Patreon Discord, we have a channel on there called Earhearts. That's a place like where we hang out, quote unquote get a drink, whatever, you know.
We play drinking games every week. I'll give you all the behind the scenes of this, and honestly, I'm the one who usually leads this.
Do it, because this is the thing I was going to share, is the drinking game.
Yeah, based on your all's comments out there on these episodes, I create a drinking game every single week. Well, not every single week, but most weeks I try to create a drinking game based on your all's comments out there and how many repetitions we get. It's all in good fun, folks. It's all in good fun. Go ahead, Jeff.
We love it. It is great, but we do have some extra fun at your expense. So cool.
Am I going to get in trouble here? Do I need to make apologies to everybody? Okay, go ahead.
Literally, I was just going to say exactly what you said. We'll do things like, hey, take a drink every time that Londo does this thing. You tell, when they say Londo did this thing, take a drink. Oh, every time that somebody says that Brent doesn't understand nuance, that's 3 drinks. Like, that's... But I specifically wanted to give a shout out to some of our patrons who are regular participants in there. So Alan, Delenn, D. Dowland, and DH Flow, Nia, and some others are consistently on there. And to prove that we play it in fun, none of us have died from alcohol poisoning, which is exactly what would happen with the rules you put out there.
It's true. It's usually a 1 drink for this, 2 drinks for that, 3 drinks for that.
And then sometimes 1,000 drinks if when this thing happens, and that usually happens at some point.
I think if that's when something really annoys me.
Yeah, I just wanted to thank everybody that participates in that. And if you're not a current subscriber to our Patreon, just know that on our Discord, like, that's one of many really cool things that happens on there.
Well, Jeff, along with the games that we play, like our drinking games, or like the Rule of 3. Another game that we like to play is when we get to the end of the show, we're going to do it later on in this one, where we take a look at next week's episode. We only look at the title and we try to guess what the episode is going to be about based on the title alone, never reading a description, never having seen a thumbnail, and never having watched ahead before either. And this is the spot where we revisit what we said last week this week was going to be about. So, Jeff, we talked about Walkabout last week. What did you think this episode was going to be about, and how close were you?
I'm really excited for us to pay the piper this week because together we nailed this one in such a great way. So I thought we were going to get the new Vorlon ambassador who was going to show up, and then I went south from here. But I thought that Lita Alexander was going to come with them.
That was phenomenal. I was so glad for you to hit that one.
I know, it's like she showed up. How cool is this? But I thought that Lita was going to lead the new Vorlon ambassador around on a walkabout the station, introducing them to people and all that. That part didn't happen, but we totally got our new Kosh. What about you, Brent? What did you guess it was going to be?
Well, I got the other half of that correct, where I said that this was going to be an authentic, Aboriginal, Australian Crocodile Dundee. Good day, mate. I apologize to every Australian listener out there. Walkabout. And I also said that this would be for Dr. Franklin, that he would be doing it, which I nailed it, got it right, because him coming off the STEM thing, resigning, he was just set up for it, right? And I said by the end, this would be the episode where we started liking Dr. Franklin. Now, whether or not that part's true, let's talk about that over the course of this episode. But for the most part, Jeff, I'm going to say nailed it.
Yeah, big time. I have to say that last week, when I was editing together the interludes and examinations episode, and got to the point where we started throwing out the Crocodile Dundee references. We have a lot of great listeners in Australia, and from the bottom of my heart, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry.
My friend Aniran, who is absolutely from Australia, Aniran is one of the most phenomenal singers you'll ever hear in your life. He is an absolutely cool dude. Shout out to his wife, Jamie, and his 3 kids. He would have slapped me silly for trying that.
Stand by. We'll be right back. Are you ready to take your Babylon 5 for the first time experience to the next level? With our exclusive Patreon, you'll get access to all kinds of cool stuff that you can only find there. Our recording notes, unedited reaction videos, an exclusive Discord community, and you can even be listed as a producer of the show. Plus, we even offer exclusive meet and greets and hangouts. You won't find this kind of experience anywhere else. Get all these amazing benefits, plus the opportunity to interact with other fans from around the world. It's being part of a huge community where everyone shares the same appreciation for Babylon 5. Subscribe at patreon.com/Babylon5First. That's the number 5 and the word first to get access to these incredible benefits. That's patreon.com/Babylon5First. We can't wait to see you there. Well, here's your chance to make good on it, because some people might have no idea what we're talking about here. They might not have watched this episode in 25 plus years, or maybe they did watch it and just need a little reminder about what it's about. So, Brent, will you walk us through Walkabout?
I got you, mate. Okay, that's the last time I'm ever going to do that.
You need to stop. We need to stop.
All right, well, before we get going on this episode, let's just take a moment and recap on where we are. Babylon 5 has broken away from the Earth Alliance and declared its independence. The off-world Narn have largely taken over as station security as they plan to mount their resistance to the Centauri. The Minbari are providing air support, or space support, for the station, but Sheridan has been working on the League of Non-Aligned Worlds to start chipping in on that front. The Shadows are openly attacking, and Ambassador Kosh is dead. Like, dead. Like, deader than poor Judd, Dade. 10 points to anyone who can correctly identify that reference. And Dr. Franklin has resigned his post as CMO of Babylon 5 due to his drug addiction. And good luck to anyone who's watching this episode for the first time who hasn't seen the rest of season 3 first. So, with all of that said, it's a normal, ordinary, every kind of day right here on Babylon 5. Well, that's at least what the command staff would like to have you believe. Londo is out there complaining about a Narn heavy cruiser that's flying around outside the station, crying, "That's my heavy cruiser. I want a heavy cruiser. Give me that heavy cruiser, and I want it now." Garibaldi says basically what Veruca Salt's dad should have said. No. Jakar is actually playing host to the captain of the heavy cruiser. His name is Nicole. And this is the last fully functional ship that the Narn have that hasn't been turned over to the Centauri. And Nicole has been on the run for months. Nicole is just waiting for the word to strike back at the Centauri government. But Jakar says wait, because defending Babylon 5 is the most important job right now. And what I can only assume is going to be something that we see happen right before the big heroic comeback at the end of the entire story. He says, if Babylon 5 falls, we all fall. We're going to get back to these guys later. Right now, the new Vorlon ambassador is arriving on the station. He looks a lot like Kosh, except now he's in this sort of new, cool, hip, electric boogaloo encounter suit. It also seems he doesn't speak quite as well as Kosh did. But he meets with Sheridan and Ivanova, who confirm that they have kept Kosh's death a secret, and no one is going to know that they just replaced the old hermit crab with the new hermit crab, and no one's going to be able to tell the difference, because after all, we're just going to call the new hermit crab Kosh, just like we called the old one Kosh, and the kids will never know. Well, Kosh 2 wants to see where it all happened. He's taken to Kosh 1's quarters and finding Kosh 1's old assistant, Lita Alexandra, on board. Hey, remember her? Jeff predicted she'd be in this episode. Honestly, I didn't even think about her when this whole thing went down a couple episodes ago. Kosh 2 is not pleased with Miss Alexander at all. He's kind of vicious towards her, telling her she's failed. He's roughing her up a bit. But what he really wants to know is if Kosh 1 has left a piece of himself in her, whatever that means. She says no, because she wasn't on the call sheet for that week, which really isn't her fault. Got to talk to the producers about that one. But wouldn't you know it? In the very next scene, Lita is meeting with Sheridan, and she discovers that he is the one that Kosh left a piece of himself inside of. So she goes running back to Kosh 2 and no, wait, she doesn't do that at all. She just keeps it to herself. We're going to get back to this one later. Now, why were Sheridan and Lita meeting, you ask? Well, Sheridan has a plan to put to test Garibaldi's theory about telepaths being a vulnerability to the shadows. What he wants to do is he wants to take the White Star, track down a shadow ship, have a telepath screw with it for a while, and see if he can blow it up. But don't worry, if bad things happen, the Minbari, the Narn heavy cruiser, they're going to be nearby. They can jump in and rescue if anything goes wrong. Sure, it's risky. Sure, they could all blow up, but they got to find out if they have an advantage here. Oh, wait, I'm sorry. Scratch the Narn heavy cruiser. Nicole doesn't want to go. G'Kar understands, at least that is until Garibaldi beats down his door in the middle of the night and yells at him a whole bunch. Basically, he challenges his Narn sculinity, saying, yo, are you going to Narn up or what? You going to lead these people? If you don't, you're not a real Narn, yo. We're going to get back to this one later. Out in hyperspace, the White Star finds a shadow ship. Surprise. And it starts to do its thing. Lita tries to do something, but turns out she's only like a P5 and Bester was like a P12. So, she just doesn't have the power to captain. That is until she touches Sheridan's hand and sees in his mind Kosh's last moments. She sees that it was a shadow, the shadow folks who were attacking him, and the shadows are what killed Kosh, which pisses her off just enough to get her up to like a P8 or P9, and she does what she needs to do, and it works. The shadow ship is frozen, and with some extra power from Lanier, the White Star fires and blows it up real good, but is a little too late because it already called for some friends. 4 more ships show up. A couple of Mbari telepaths handle 3 of them, but Lita and the White Star's power banks are all depleted. So one of them is still coming for them. Just as the tension turns up, it's Deus Ex Machina time, and a voice is heard on your left, because here comes G'Kar and Nikal and the whole fleet of the League of Non-Aligned Worlds into the rescue. And with all of those people coming in, the remaining bogies are bugging out. This is a great victory for Babylon 5. We've confirmed the telepath theory, meaning that we have a way to beat the shadows. The League has now aligned together with Babylon 5, and Lita has discovered where Kosh has stashed himself inside Sheridan, which she tells Kosh too, hey, I know where he is, but she doesn't tell him where just yet. I'm sure we'll get back to that one in another episode. Now, after all that recap, I'm sure you guys out there are wondering, what in the world does this have to do with a walkabout? Absolutely nothing. Because while all of that was happening, Dr. Franklin, in his civilian clothes, is on the station doing a literal, old-fashioned Australian walkabout, trying to find himself so he can sit down with himself, have a drink with himself, ask himself some hard questions, and get his crap together. And who does he find? Well, if you said a girl, you would be right. Her name is Kaylin James. She's a lounge singer in the bar down below. Like literally the name of the bar is down below. They do get to sit down and they do have a drink and they do ask some tough questions of each other. Looks like maybe this walkabout thing is kind of working. And then in true Franklin fashion, he sleeps with her. The morning after, Franklin says, hey, babe, is there anything I can do for you? And she's like, yeah, there's something you can do for me. Drugs. I want the drugs. Franklin, who's trying to get off the drugs, says no, anything but that. But the next morning, or I don't know, maybe it was even later that morning, I'm not really sure which, she steals his identicard and uses it to get the drugs anyway. Sometime later, Franklin finds Kaylin passed out from an apparent drug overdose. He takes her to med lab and turns out it wasn't a drug overdose. She has some weird space disease that's going to kill her really soon, and the medicine helped with the pain. She passed out because she didn't get the medicine in time. Franklin, seeing the error of his ways, arranges for her to get all the drugs she needs for as long as she needs it. And what does this teach Stephen about drugs? Is his walkabout over? Will he return to his post? Yeah, I don't know either. And do we start liking Dr. Franklin from here? Well, I'm not so sure of that either. Jeff, what did you think about Walkabout?
What was it you said last week that we need? Palate cleanser?
Palate cleanser. Yeah.
Ask and you shall receive.
There it is.
Here is the palate cleanser.
Yeah.
Which means like, I find that to be very encouraging, right? Because like that we're going to get running now. So it's cool. So right off the bat, let me make some people's day because I'm going to say something nice about Dr. Franklin. He was right in how he reacted to Kaylin. Like from what he knew and with his experience, you don't go get her drugs. Like what? How about instead of being like, it helps me sleep, you'd be like, I have a chronic disease and I live in down below. So I'm on Medicare or Medicaid or whatever, and they don't give me whatever. And then Dr. Franklin, of course, would find, a way to get her the drugs. But no, he was totally in the right on this one. I'm not on the train though of liking him yet. In fact, I'm probably not even at the train station to get on the train. I'm just going to say he was right, and I'll stand up for him there. But yeah, like this is an episode that happened. It's an episode. The telepath thing, you said it last week. This probably should have happened last week, but
this was literally what I called for last week. When they said, "Hey Sheridan, go prove to us that you can win." I said, "Take the White Star out, go blow up a shadow ship, and then you win."
Yeah, here you go.
You know how to do it. Go grab the telepath. Like we've known that. You've had the formula. Go do it.
And I think the JMS and crew knew that also because I don't know, like 10% of this episode was Kaylin singing. Like Franklin walks into the bar and she's singing. I'm like, great. And then I look at my watch and I'm like, she's still singing. And then again, she's still singing. And then I thought to myself, I'm like, oh, you know when shows do this? Shows do this in one of two situations. Either they just paid millions of dollars to the rights to some big song, and so they're going to play the heck out of it, or they're going to put this on a soundtrack, right, and monetize this whole thing. Nope. This song exists in this episode, and that's it.
I was going to ask you, is this a real world song?
Not that I could find. I didn't dig deep because I didn't want to like uncover anything about Kaylin or anything, but from a cursory search, it's not.
I'll give you a third reason why they put this stuff in there. To fill time.
Exactly. Because this is a story that should have picked up last week that they dropped in here, and it wasn't quite enough because last week had more stuff in it.
Those songs that she sang were awful.
Yeah.
They were lyrically horrible.
Like objectively, mathematically, so bad.
Did not work. It felt like, listen, JMS, I love you. Your writing has been mostly magnificent. Writing this song, I mean, she sang what you put down on paper, brother,
and she sounded great.
Sure.
Fantastic singer, great singer, great performer.
Sure. The music was a little weird, but I mean, it's like, imagine just picking up a novel or reading a letter, a personal letter, but you start singing it. Nothing makes sense. Nothing rhymes. There's no meter. There's no bars. You're not like,
if you want to know how to do that, go to a personal favorite of mine who I have met and have a tremendous amount of both musical and personal respect for, but listen to old, like early mid 90s Lisa Loeb. Lisa Loeb could take those like preteen diary entries or the love letter you wrote in class, and she can do that. She can add meter to it. She can have a rhyming scheme. She can have those things. And there's a reason that here we are 30 plus years later and she still has an active career. I don't think this lady's singing this song anywhere. I don't think JMS is getting any writing credits for lyrics these days. Like,
I was really hoping you were going with Steven Tyler there for a minute from Aerosmith.
That would work too.
But I'll take Lisa Loeb. That being said, I can hear JMS because we know he listens to every episode here at Babylon 5 for the first time. And
it's how he goes back and rewrites the stuff.
Yeah.
So we know he does.
Well, but he's also saying like, I'm not a songwriter. I'm a screenwriter. We know, dude, like I got you. I understand.
And you're on a shoestring budget. You can't just go higher. We get it. We get it. Also, don't spend 4.5 minutes on this song. Compress this to 90 seconds. Yeah. Like, just give us a piece. Yeah, went way too long. I dig New Kosh, though. I'm not going to lie. I like the look of New Kosh. I am really interested to see how they kind of integrate into stuff because they are not, they don't seem to be the extrovert that Kosh was, and that's saying a lot that I'm calling Kosh an extrovert compared to Kosh.
Kosh seemed to know how to communicate with folks. This guy doesn't. Like, he doesn't even he seems to barely speak the language.
I felt like that speaking got better as it's almost like they were learning how to translate their whatever into English through the episode.
I have a confession to make.
Okay.
I was spoiled to this one.
How?
Yeah, it was one of the other podcasts that are out there. People that I think it's one of the ones doing a rewatch, like people who've watched the show before. Totally fair. They were not tagging us. They didn't say Babylon 5, look at this, or Babylon 5 for the first time, look at this. And like there was none of that. It just like I think we followed them on the thing, and somebody put up and said New Kosh, Electric Boogaloo, and they had this picture here. I had no context for what that meant. I just thought Kosh gets a new costume. You know, like that's all it was. I mean, this was like back in season 2 or something like that.
Okay.
Like it was so I just sort of, because we've seen GIFs and things of people we have no idea who they are or what's going on, and you just sort of file it away and say, well, we'll figure it out when we get there. It was just one of those sorts of things. But I knew that there was a new, but I saw Kosh 2 Electric Boogaloo, and so
I love that.
My recap I worked that into the recap just for them.
Well done. But yeah, like I never saw this Kosh before, the costume or anything.
It looks cool.
It looks cool. It's sleek, very sleek, a little meaner, right? Like, in fact, I even feel like it has more of a feminine feel to it than the Kosh one. I really got the impression until the voice, like when it started talking and then it was weird talking and it got a little better, I halfway expected more of a feminine voice out of it. But had I seen what you saw, I literally would have thought that, like, hey, they got new uniforms, so why doesn't Kosh get an upgraded suit? Like, that would have made sense.
Yeah.
What about you? What were your first impressions of this one?
Very similar to you. I thought this was a good transition episode. And I'll say that I want to put that out there. I thought this was a good episode.
Yeah, I agree.
I suspect when we do our rankings, this one's probably going to find itself towards the bottom of the middle, maybe even in the bottom tier of the season, because season 3 has been pretty strong. And I've got a feeling that with these remaining 6 episodes, at least 4 of them are going to be top tier episodes. It's just a feeling. I don't know. I'm just, you guys have hyped up this show so much and we're in that part of the season. I'm just guessing here. This episode was not spectacular though. It was a palate cleanser. Like you said, it was a palate cleanser. We had Ship of Tears. We had interludes and examinations. I don't know what's coming next week, but like you said, Jeff, I feel it too. I feel like it's going to be big, mostly because of how low key this episode was. And like I said, where we are in the season, it just, I think we're used to the rhythms of how these seasons run.
Yeah.
I did feel that this was an episode that was wrapping up some dangling threads of previous episodes and getting those taken care of so we can be ready for whatever's to come next. Kosh is dead. We got a new ambassador back on the station. Lita was hanging out there. I didn't even you thought about Lita. I didn't even think about Lita. What's going on with her? She was Kosh's a personal assistant. There's the whole thing about Sheridan and whatever his connection to the first Kosh was. There's the whole thing with the telepathy and does that harm the shadow ships? Like there's just all these little things. Franklin's deal, let's be honest, that was like the D plot.
Yeah, but it should have been, you know what I mean? But like it was the most of the episode.
Was it really? Did it take up the most time on the episode? I don't know. I didn't do a springtime thing. What do I
Maybe I'm just feeling that way because of the song. Like I'm not joking. That thing was over 4 minutes of screen time.
Let's let Matt watch that and see how he feels about it. But anyway, with all of that, while this was not a knock it out of the park episode, this also did not make me want to change the channel, a la that King Arthur episode we had several episodes back. Like that was just garbage. That being said, this was a necessary and ultimately a fine, but rather forgettable episode to me. I call this a laundry episode. It's an episode you're watching. It's on TV while you're folding laundry. You're not going to change the channel. You'll walk in and out of it and you're fine. It's a laundry episode to me.
Can we then just talk about what to me is the biggest issue in this entire episode, other than the song taking too long, which I'll get off that soapbox.
Does it have anything to do with weed?
No.
Okay, go ahead.
It should though.
Oh, we'll talk about that.
But it's close. It has to do with the plant.
Okay.
How, in the name of the maker, does dude walk down below and buy an orange?
Okay.
Didn't we have a whole episode or part of an episode in the second season where Sheridan was like, oh my God, the Technomade just gave me an orange.
Right.
Like oranges are like God's nectar that comes down. And Franklin's just like, I'll just buy an orange and eat it here and down. But how does that happen? That's my big question.
Because like they have like the hydroponics bay out there. That he's like, I'm just going to go run through the hydroponics bay. But I mean, in a station of 250,000 people, that's got to be a pretty big hydroponics bay to feed all of them, like to make it that
They don't even have health care in Down Below, but you can buy oranges that the CO of the station has to like flex to get stuff. Come on. This whole series just lost all credibility. Not really.
He's serious about that, folks, and you can find him at jeff@babylon5first.com. Email him all of your thoughts.
Let's talk about weed.
Let's talk about weed. Jeff, listen, I thought that this episode was going to be about Franklin finding himself getting over his drug addiction, his stim addiction, and then it turned into an advertisement for why you should legalize marijuana. Seriously, like there's the whole thing about Franklin and then the drugs that Kaylin needed. And, you know, it is the metaphor here that stems are really just weed. Okay. Some people use them recreationally. Some people can use them, I guess, dangerously if you use weed dangerously. But also at the same time, it can be a good medicine for folks who really need it. And you shouldn't be so quick to judge when people ask for it. Now, I understand whatever she was asking for was not the same thing that dude was on, but stick with me here because she said, I want these drugs. And he went, no, because I'm dealing with that and I got to get off it. And he judged her. He judged her like that. And turns out it was actually medication, not recreation that she needed it for. So I think this episode was about legalizing weed.
Wow. I didn't get that at all. But I can see it a little bit. And actually I see it more like, because it is the 90s. It's about legalizing weed. But I see it now in the more modern conversation of like psilocybin and peyote and things like that. Because weed's just a thing now for most of the country.
To be clear, that was an entire joke.
but you made
people out there don't though.
Okay. But you made a really good point in him just straight up judging her.
Yeah.
Because I think I've talked quite a bit about trying to remind myself when this show came out, because I got really hung up on my first watch through. And then it's like, oh, so the stims aren't a problem anymore. Like we're just fine. And now it's him finding himself, where we're smarter now. And we know that you have to like work your way into recovery and then manage your recovery. And it's an ongoing disease that you work with. So I had to remind myself of that. And when I did, when he judged Kaylin, like, and he in his face, like everything, he's in bed and he's like, oh, what do you like? He started with curiosity, what do you need it for? Oh, it helps me sleep. And you could just see him like crumble, where he's like, oh my, you're every stereotype that I thought, from a lurker down here doing stuff. I think if anything, this is more an episode, not so much an episode about legalizing weed, but more about med management and med control. Because apparently with just an identicard, you can walk into the pharmacy and walk out with whatever you want. There's nobody on shift. There's no cameras. Like, bloop, just do your badge and snag what you want.
Right? Oh my gosh. Yeah, it's a thing. And she passed out right before she could take it. That's how much pain she was in. Okay, so here's the big question I have. Where is Franklin at the end of this episode? Is he still on Walkabout? Like, because we left him with like a give her whatever she needs, it's authorized or whatever. And then like he walks out and like that's the end of his story for the episode. So is he back as CMO? Is he?
God, that'd be disappointing.
Is he still addicted to his stims? Is this what he had to get over? Because there really was that point. He set it up real well. He's like, listen, you're out here, you walk around, you walk until you meet yourself. You eventually meet yourself and you sit down and you have a drink with yourself and you ask yourself the hard questions and you search yourself, and then you get up and you're able to walk away as one person. Mm-hmm. And then he goes in and he meets Kaylin, and I'm like, okay, she is his mirror reflection. And they sit down and they have the drink and they're asking hard questions, and she's very much his equal in this whole thing, and they even share some time. And then she even goes for the whole like, hey, I'm going to do drugs, which is him facing his own demon. And then they drop it on actually it's a medication. It's not an addiction. And you're like, oh crap. So
what was it?
Yeah. So what was this for him?
They went so far as like when they were doing the drink, like she's holding up the glass, right? And like doing the whole, like looking at him, which I thought was brilliant filmmaking.
Yeah.
Cool
like, cinematography. Absolutely.
It's like, look, here's the broken Franklin and the sides of him. It also selfishly, I had this whole thought where I'm like, oh my God, she's not a human. Like she's one of those Nagrath aliens, and she's like holding that up because it lets her see like through the compound eye. It's like that the Buffy the Vampire Slayer episode Teacher's Pet, where like she lures lurkers in to sleep with her, but actually she's a bug and she eats them. But instead, no, it was beautiful, poetic cinematography and filmmaking. It was so good. And then like it's just is it we need to legalize weed? Is it a personification of Franklin's Walkabout? Is it commentary on universal health care and the need for adequate medication for people? Or was it just an excuse for us to get some more Franklin stuff? And yeah, it had a lot of potential and just kind of like...
It just fizzled at the end. I don't even know that it fizzled. I just don't understand it. You know, and my biggest hope right now is people are out there writing in the comments, just you wait. Just JMS doesn't just do anything for no reason. He doesn't just leave it out there. Just you wait. Like, okay, guys, thanks. Cool.
Well, to those people, I ask you this: where is the great egg? Right? If he doesn't leave anything out there, we'd have some resolution to that story. So I rest my case.
And then you're going to get the other people. Well, not everything. Yeah, that was pretty much the Franklin stuff. Jeff, we got Kosh too. Boy, he was pissed at Lita. Okay, I've got to ask though. His big thing was, did Kosh leave any of himself inside of you? And then turns out, oh no, he left himself inside of Sheridan. This seems huge. This is a piece that is going to be like, this is going to pick up much later, or maybe not much later, maybe next week. I don't know when that's going to pick up, but that's what do we make of? There's a piece of Kosh inside Sheridan.
So this ties right back to last week in interludes and examinations when Kosh said, as long as you're here, I'm here.
Oh, good call, Jeff.
When he was doing the dad dream or whatever, he basically put his fingers on Sheridan's face and said, remember. He transferred his Katra to Sheridan in that moment.
Right.
But that's where it is. And so here's my guess. This is going to be a thing that Kosh 2.0 and Lita brings up. I think Lita's going to have some jealousy, I think, is the thing around it, because clearly she was more than just, in her mind at least, was more than just Kosh's aide.
It's almost like she was going to be his vessel at some point.
It was expected that, like, they knew he was going to die and she was being prepped to take him on or whatever. We're going to see the payoff when Sheridan is on Zahadum and he's about to die. And then Kosh will burst forth from his chest as an angel and whoosh, be the hand.
Because he's going to die on Zahadum, right?
He's going to die.
Yeah, that's right.
Kosh will live on and possibly live on through him. Death of self to be life for all kind of a thing.
So in kind of the same way that we said a while ago that Sinclair was a Minbari, and turns out we were right about that.
Sheridan's of Orlon. And you know what? That actually, outside of it was expected of Lita. Let's erase that and just say they actually knew that it was going to be Sheridan the whole time. Lita was just there for whatever other reason. Okay. That makes a whole lot more sense when Delenn looks at Kosh at the end of season 2 and says, you have to go get him, and you know why. And that makes a whole lot more sense. It makes that whole phrase make sense. So boy, that's a good way to write a story. Yeah. It is so good, especially because he's seeded us, right?
Jeff, you know what that is, though? That's Ben Sisko becoming a prophet at the end and leaving everybody.
Okay. Let's go down that, right? So Sheridan and Delenn hook up.
Sitting in a tree, yeah.
But they'll be doing more than KISS9. Yeah, yep. He's going to leave a family, not just Delenn, but their unborn child.
Too, right?
Yeah. Totally going to be Sisko and Yates and the little unborn kid.
But see, you know why we know Deep Space Nine didn't copy that directly? Because there's no Jake stand-in.
Well, if there is, it's Ivanova. Like she'd be the Jake
that's Kira.
Yeah. There's no Jake.
There's no Jake.
You know what? Okay, can I sidetrack for just a second?
Sure.
It's been a long time since we've gone down this path of who stole what from who or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
So back in, when did they drop this from HBO? Like back in December or whatever. So
no, it was like the end of January, beginning of February, somewhere in there.
Okay.
Like pretty close. Yes, sure. Fine. It doesn't matter. Go ahead. Sorry, Jeff.
A while ago.
Yeah.
I, like many other people, went to go cancel my HBO Max subscription because I don't need it anymore. Essentially, turns out I paid for the year. And so my wife and I were like, well, we should watch something on it. So we decided to rewatch Game of Thrones. And, whatever. Everyone's got opinions on Game of Thrones. We're taking our time through it this time. And it's fun. I'm enjoying it. It's neat to see how TV has progressed, which is my point. Very first episode of Game of Thrones, when it ends, you think, oh yeah, there's going to be like some
Jeff's about to spoil Game of Thrones for everybody out there. Just warning. If you haven't seen Game of Thrones, fast forward about 30 seconds.
Skip just a little bit here. So you watch that first episode and you're like, oh yeah, some like kingdom mad political whatever stuff is going to happen. But the big thing are the White Walkers.
Yeah.
Like that's the story. They're doing stuff. And then like nothing in season 2, nothing. Little here, there, nothing. And then, whoa, winter has finally come. The first episode of Game of Thrones is signs and portents when they're like, yeah, the shadows are going to kill you. So what does that even mean? I don't even know what that means. Yeah, what it means is you just seeded like the big bad guy through the whole thing. Game of Thrones ripped off Babylon 5, not Deep Space Nine, not Battlestar Galactica, Game of Thrones.
Preach, brother, preach.
Yeah. JMS needs to go after George R.R. Martin or whoever it is, who's literally just like, oh, it's a pretty cool little fun thing you did with your little sci-fi show there. Watch what I do with $1 billion episodes every week.
Right. Well, he wrote the books first and then he stopped writing the books. Or he's never stopped writing the books, and that's the problem.
Yeah, it just keeps going. But yeah. All right. Sorry for my little sidetrack there.
You know what? I like the theory. I buy it. I'm buying it. Game of Thrones rips off Babylon 5.
Can we talk about that we are all Kosh? What do you want me to call you? Kosh? We are all Kosh.
What is the implication of that? Is that an implication that all the Vorlon are they one like collective continuum? Go ahead and buzz because you know exactly what I'm talking about.
I took it more as it's the Minbari religious belief that the universe exists and we're all just manifestations of that universe. The Vorlons set up this whole religious thing with the Minbari to basically be like, you're going to worship us. We're the universe. We're all just manifestations of it. So the universe is like, if you translated Vorlon to English, Kosh means universe. I wonder though, we heard his last name.
He did have a last name. Yeah. Naragi or something like that.
Something like that. Kosh Naragnik, Ragnarok. Something like that. I wonder if that's a thing where it's like everyone is Kosh, but like there's like Kosh Ragnarok and then Naranak. Okay. Kosh Naranik. Yeah. So it's like there's Kosh Naranik. Here's Kosh Brent. Here's Kosh Jeff. And we just go by Kosh.
Mm-hmm.
My friends call me Naranik. You can call me Kosh. But I feel like between that, we are all Kosh. And then Kosh's statement to Sheridan, as long as you're alive, I'm still here, which like there's a lot there. And I don't know what to make of it all yet, but it's more than just a convenience of don't let anybody know he's dead. I'm still just Kosh.
I like it.
So Sheridan pulls everybody together.
No.
And, okay, I have a
no.
Jakar
pulled everybody together.
No. Later he did. I'm telling.
Oh, you're talking about you're talking about like the War Council guys or whatever.
Yeah.
Okay. Sorry.
So I have a nephew who has he's on the autism spectrum.
Okay.
And when he was very young, the only way to communicate with him, like 3 or 4 years old, was he loved that poem. We're going on a bear hunt. Going on a bear hunt. Gonna be that like that
I'm
was the
not scared.
I'm not scared. Yeah, that was the way to communicate with him. You'd say those words, but like you'd change his nonverbal communication, and it was great. So I felt like Sheridan was pulling everybody together and being like, we're going on a shadow hunt. Going on a shadow hunt. And then pulling the telepathic people together and going for it. How? I said this before. How did no one know this? It worked so well. The Minbari were a 1-to-1 ratio. 3 telepaths, 3 shadow ships went down. How is this a revelation after all this time? To me, it is unfathomable that they're just now, after all these years, uncovering this.
Okay, just clarification. The war that happened 1,000 years ago with Jaquan and the Narn, were the Minbari a part of that war?
That's my understanding.
Okay. Did the Minbari have telepaths back then? Had they developed?
Don't know. That's a good question.
I mean, because I was trying to figure this out too. Like, we know now that the Narn had telepaths. The Shadows eliminated all the telepaths of the Narn, which is why they don't have any today. But if the Minbari were around back then and they have their logs, their memories whatsoever, cultural memories of that war, why didn't they know about the telepath thing?
Yeah.
And frankly, if they were around, how did you defeat them? The Narn weren't spacefaring baring then, so maybe they don't know what happened. They just, hey, you're on my planet and you guys sucked, and then you went away. Like, but the Minbari, maybe the Minbari weren't spacefaring either. Like, I don't know. Like,
I think they were, though.
Right?
I think if I understand it right, like the Vorlons and the Party First Ones and others were the real war that was happening, but the Minbari were kind of like the
new
humans.
guys. Yeah.
Like, hey, we're here and we're gonna help. We're helping.
Hey guys, wait for me. I'm coming.
Yeah.
Can I help? I want to help.
Maybe they didn't have telepaths then, but the Vorlons sure probably did. Other ones probably did. Or is telepathy a whole new thing? The Narns were the first ones to develop it, and then it just, I don't know. To me, this is a big, like, just plot hole in the whole fabric of this whole thing that this bothered me a lot. Like, it's great that it was effective.
Yeah. Cool.
But seriously, now? And Lita having to get, like, bleeding from the eyes.
All right,
mad.
first of all, that was the part that took me out. Okay. Just because she saw what happened to Kosh, it pissed her off enough, and now she could do what she was physically unable to do before. I understand adrenaline and you can get like superhuman strength and lift a car off somebody that you couldn't normally do. Like, that happens sometimes. For her to be able to do what she did, that just seemed a bit over the top, but I appreciated it strained her so much she went all 11 from Stranger Things on us,
Yeah.
And then she was done. She was wiped out. She couldn't do any more, and kind of blew your wad on that one.
It reminded me a lot of, and I think I've referenced them before, but the Wheel of Time books.
Yeah.
In the earlier ones, there's a character named Nynaeve, and there's a lot of magic in this story, and the way they do the magic is they access the one true source, and women have, what is it, Sayadin, and the men use Sayadar, and or the other way around, I forget, but it's how they channel. They channel the source to do their magic, and Nynaeve is one of the most powerful channelers that has ever lived in history, but she can only touch the one true source when she is furious. Like, she has to be mad. And so that's what I got, is like, oh, so Lita's a P5, but when she gets really, really mad, then she becomes a P8, or not, like you were saying in the recap, or like, what is that? So the whole time I'm thinking, and I know I understand why they didn't have Bester for this, right? One, Koenig's got other stuff he's doing. He probably costs a couple bucks to bring on, but Bester's on Mars. He's on Earth. He's doing whatever he's doing. But what could a Bester do? What if you brought Bester and his partner Psychop, that apparently is played by Walter Koenig's wife, which is pretty cool. But what if you brought those on? They're two P12s. Could they take out two ships apiece? Or are the Minbari like P12s?
I was gonna say, what are the Minbari? Because the Minbari seem to handle them no problem.
Total one. They're laying down, relaxed.
Don't you have those Minbari on board with Bester, like before Bester even came on board? Didn't you have them? Like, why isn't that an issue?
Yeah, like, this has never happened before. It's
right. You Minbari don't have that as a record that, like, hey, you can stop the shadow ships, so you see them and you should do so. Like, you're right about that. There is something here, Jeff. I'm going to assume that there's just information we don't have yet about the history of how all this went down.
There has to be.
I'm going to assume that that's what it is, because I don't know that could just be a super big plot hole point, or it's just one of those that everybody goes, you like Star Trek, right? You're familiar with plot holes, right?
Right. Yeah.
And it's kind of discontinuity, right?
No, the Borg were always coming after. They're always trying to assimilate. There was never a time they were trying to control, dominate, or destroy, ever. We'll forget who ever happened.
What we did is we confirmed what the theory was. And I'll go back to where you started this. G'Kar brought everyone together.
Yeah.
I mean, awesome conversation between Garibaldi and G'Kar, where Garibaldi just called him out for accepting blah. And he didn't just bring the Narn heavy cruiser. He brought the whole gang, you know, and the Shadows went, we're getting out of here, which means they can be beat. Mm-hmm. They can be beat.
And they can be beaten. And you'll probably talk, I don't know if you'll talk about this in the Deltas conversation or not, but they'll be beaten when we come together. Together we can achieve this. You know, on our own, they're going to eat us up, but together. I loved Jakar's asleep in his quarters and his door starts going. He wakes up. In my head, I'm like, this had better be Garibaldi. He better be paying Jakar back for how and it totally was. And he shoved the book in his hands. I'm just like, yes, this has been 2 really good Garibaldi episodes back to back.
Well, Jeff, you just mentioned the Deltas portion of the show. So why don't we jump into that portion of the show? Because I think that's where the meat of the rest of our conversation lies. It's time to boil it down. Let's see if this show has any of that Star Trek quality to it. Does it have that deep moral message? Is it holding up a mirror to society? Is it giving us hope that we can be better in the future? Is it trying to communicate a lesson that we can apply to ourselves today to be better tomorrow or later today? I'm going to rate this on a scale of 0 to 5 deltas as far as how Star Trek this episode is. Jeff, you're going to do this episode on a scale of 0 to 5 Starfuries as to how Babylon 5. How much did the show do it in a Babylon 5 way? And how much do we just like the episode? You're going to do that. I'm going to go first. I want to talk about deltas. Jeff, I said it earlier. I'll say it again. This show was about one thing and one thing only to me: legalize weed. No, I'm just joking. That is not what it was about. It actually was about that conversation between Garibaldi and Jakar. And so I didn't want to talk about that. I didn't want to get too deep into that, which Garibaldi shows up and he says, here's your stuff. You got to get in there and do that. Oh, well, it's Nicole. He's the thing. Or dude, are you the ambassador or not? Are you the guy leading this or not? Because if you are, then you got to get in there and talk to him. You understand the entire scope of everything that's going on. He only sees his one little piece. He will follow you if you tell him what to do, but you've got to tell him what to do. You can't give him all just pure authority to do whatever he wants to do. You've got to lead, Jakar. You've got to lead your people, bring people together. Very much in just what you said, Jeff. The shadows will run when we all come together. But what does it take for us to come together? We need you to show up. Folks out there, here's the message. You need to show up. We as a society need your contribution, whatever that is, whatever your contribution to society is. It's different. Jakar's was not Nicole. Jakar was not in charge of the heavy cruiser. Jakar had a different job. And when he would engage in his job, in his contribution, he was able to rally not just the heavy cruiser, which was the actual idea, but he was able to rally everyone. He was able to do something bigger than even what his own scope was. When he came in, he's like, oh, look, the Narn heavy cruiser. Nope, I'm not on the cruiser. I've got my own ship. And all the red circles started opening up and they all slid into the place, you know? It was just phenomenal. And here's the thing. The other side of that is if you don't do your job, if you're not you, be you. We need you folks out there to be you. It could all go wrong. We could all die. We could all be taken over by the evil ones. So that's the message. That's the deltas in this episode, Jeff, is we need you to be you. Here's my problem. This was barely half the episode. So I'm going to give this barely half of the deltas. I'm going to do a rating I've never done before. I'm going to give this 2.25 deltas.
It's funny you say that because my immediate thought was, please say 2.5. Please say 2.5. Because if you don't know, often on the YouTube and the Twitter, we do a little graphic of what our ratings were, and I have to make those. And now I have to be like, how do I do 2.25?
Good luck only doing a quarter of one this time, Jeff.
Thanks for the extra work this week. It's pretty great, but I don't disagree. It's such a great and powerful message that's going to pay off as we move. This was the seed and totally worth it.
How about you? What are your Starfuries?
We talked about this. This was an okay episode. It wasn't bad at all. This is good. It's fine, adequate. It did what it needed to do. I think it had some cool Franklin stuff. Right. And means a lot coming from Jeff. You know, people out there get really upset with how I feel about Franklin. I can be fair. I had some good stuff. Garibaldi shined in this one. I'm going to rate this one though. Like if I was just going to rate this on how much we liked it, whatever. I'd probably give it 2 Starfuries. But we also rate it on how Babylon 5 the episode is. And to me, what you just talked about really hits that. In that scene where all the jump gates and stuff are opening up and just that big hole and the ships we've never seen before, or if we haven't been noteworthy, they come out and the shadow tucks tail. And that has got to be like a Babylon 5 moment. So that moment alone on its own is worth half a Starfury itself. I'm giving this one 2.5 Starfuries.
Well, Jeff, just like last season, we are creating the absolute 100% completely accurate and definitive ranking of the 3rd season of Babylon 5. So the question that you get to answer today, I don't have anything to do with, is where are we going to rank Walkabout? Our current top 5 ranking is Severed Dreams, Point of No Return, Ship of Tears, Messages from Earth, and Interludes and Examinations. Just because I think I know where this one might be headed, let me give you what the bottom 5 are. The bottom 5 are A Day in the Strife, Convictions, Exogenesis, Ceremonies of Light and Dark, and A Late Delivery from Avalon. And then there's everything else in between. Jeff, where do you place Walkabout?
When we ranked, I think you ranked A Late Delivery from Avalon.
Yes.
And we talked about, when we did that, we talked about, we could do what we did last season and just put it down at number 22 and, blah, 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 blah. But in reality, when I look at this list, like we have Ceremonies of Light and Dark at number 14 and then Late Delivery from Avalon at 15. It really is much further down. Like there's a real separation between Ceremonies of Light and Dark and A Late Delivery. So I'm clearly above Avalon. Where I'm kind of landing right here, honestly, is I'm looking at A Day in the Strife and number 10, which is Seek Transit Veer.
Yeah.
Seek Transit Veer.
Right.
For putting this one. And when I think about that, Seek Transit Veer, it needed some help as an episode, but man, it had some heavy hitting stuff that it got for us. A Day in the Strife was a good episode. It was fine. It was interesting. I think this one was better. I'm going to put this one our new number 11, just above A Day in the Strife and below Seek Transit Veer.
No, Jeff, I think that is very accurate. Like I said at the beginning, I think by the time we're done with this ranking, we're going to find it towards the bottom of the middle, maybe in the bottom tier. And this is right there on that cusp of middle to bottom. And so, yeah, I'm right there with you on it, man.
And then and you said it earlier, in a really strong season.
It's season 3's been, look, this is one of the weaker episodes of the season. And we've said several times, it's a good episode. I feel like we've kind of been pooping on this episode a lot, but it's actually a good episode.
Well, we've had so many incredible episodes this season that just get a little bit of criticism. Sounds like that. I'd watch this before almost half of the second season. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Like, because that one took some time to get going. Yeah. But at this point, right now, we're done with Walkabout. Next week, Brent, we are watching War Without End, Part 1.
Oh, it's a part 1?
I'm going to be clear. It's Part 1. This is a 2-parter. And listen, I know, and I appreciate so much your thoughts, your input on this. But please save your keyboard strokes, right? Like we don't need the comments or the emails here or the tweets. This is our first time watching this whole series. This is how we're going to experience it. Mm-hmm. Next week, we're going to watch War Without End Part 1. The week after that, we're going to watch Part 2. And yeah, when we're done, maybe we think like we did with Voice in the Wilderness. We broke them up. We're like, yeah, we could have done this as one episode. Maybe we'll land there, but this is how we're going to experience it. Because
we'll get the break and we'll be able to talk about what just happened versus what I think the big thing is what's going to happen next week as it wraps up. But Jeff, I got Jeff, A War Without End. Jeff, this is the episode I've been waiting for. Okay, my palate is officially cleansed. I'm ready for this bad boy. Okay.
Bring it on.
Jeff, I do not remember when, but a long time ago. Do you remember when I made a prediction? It was about Babylon 4. It was about the war with the shadows and the Vorlons. And what I said was the nature of the Shadow War is going to be where there's the old wars, and then there's this one. And what's going to happen is Babylon 4 is going to be bouncing between the timelines. And it turns out all of these wars are actually going to be the same war. And we're going to bring the first ones, and we're going to bring the Jaquans, and we're going to bring these guys together, and it's like going to be this one ultimate war happening all at the same time across all these different timelines. And Babylon 4 is the thing that's bouncing through, like making all of that happen and facilitating that.
The connective tissue between everything.
Jeff, I've been waiting for this because I've been holding on to that. Like, I think that's where this is going. If this is the war without end, oh, Jeff. And this is where it has to be. This is the year of the Shadow War.
But I think the Shadow, so we don't ever do this. Like, I want to dispute because I think the Shadow War is happening. It's where all the little wars are fighting on behalf of the shadows. I think it's too soon for Babylon 4.
I don't think so. I do not think so. I think, now here's the thing. Is it all going to wrap up in a 2-part episode? No. But I think this is the thing that's going to kick us off. We're going to see Babylon 4 again. We're going to start skipping through time, and we're going to get there. This is a war that has been raging for millennia, for eons. And this is like a Bill and Ted bouncing through time, collecting the great warriors of the past. The first one, like I said, the first ones in Jaquan, and what's the Minbari's dude name?
Valen. Yeah,
him, which by your thing might have actually been Kosh.
I guess I've always thought it was Sinclair. Like, I thought that's the
you think Sinclair was Valen?
I did for a long time, but we've been told now that Valen's not of Minbar, so I think he probably is Vorlon.
Because Sinclair's a Minbar. Yeah. So
yeah.
Okay. Oh, maybe it's Sheridan with the
because if he's Vorlon, it's Kosh Valen. God, I love it. I love it, and I will lose my mind if that's what it is. But I feel like it's too soon to pull it to bring that out. Like,
I think Zathras is coming back.
Really?
I think Zathras has to. Okay, here's the deal. We got Zathras, who was an awesome character in that one. It was Babylon Squared, right?
Yeah.
We heard Zathras mentioned withdrawal down on planet Epsilon 3, right? And we're still not entirely sure what he does on Epsilon 3, right? I've heard too many people talk about Zathras for him to be a one-off character who then gets name dropped. He's got to come back. Okay.
I got a question for you. Do you think it's going to be Zathras and crew? There was one other key player in the Babylon Squared thing, and that was the one Sinclair in the blue spacesuit. Do you think we're going to see not necessarily Ranger 1 Sinclair, but like Babylon Squared Sinclair? Or maybe that is Ranger 1 Sinclair. Or he was not the one, right? That was Zathras's thing. Not the one.
He says, not the one. You're right. Because of Sheridan.
Yeah.
The Sheridan puts on the suit. I think it might be too soon for that. That we might get there later on in season 3, maybe season 4
or 5. There's so much more of this series left.
Yeah, but I mean, Jeff, though, in the narrative structure, I think the Shadow War has to end before season 5.
Yeah.
And then season 5 has to be about what do we do after, right? Like, that's because we've been told that, like, we understand JMS has written these according to a narrative structure. We're in the rising action. The third section is your climax, right? Like, this is where everything gets so intense. So to put this in right here, this 2-parter in this episode 17, 18 slot, again, I don't know that we're going to get all of this in one episode or 2 episodes, but I think this is where we really start this war without end. And we're going to start all of these pieces, bringing them back together. Jeff, I've been holding on to this for so long. Like, this has been in my back pocket since I don't even remember when it first occurred to me that this is it. I hope this is where it's going, because I love this idea of a narrative storyline. And I really hope this is where we're going.
I love your interpretation of War Without End and how literally, like, it's happening in all time at all times with the same stuff. Like, that's intense.
And here's the thing. So I have a personal, have I talked about this on the show? I might not. Anyway, briefly, my own personal theory is I believe time travel is possible, but I believe time is a closed loop, or rather a closed cylinder. It's not a loop. I think it's or not a cylinder. I'm sorry, a sphere. Time is a sphere. And from the center of that sphere, all points exist at all time at the same time in equal parts, right? So if you can travel through the center of that sphere, you can get to any point in time as it exists. Okay. But what that also means is it's because it's closed, you can't change the future. It's just how it happens is how it always happens. And so, like, to go in and not be like, oh, we're gonna change everything. Like when that lady came in that, what was it, Signs Importance episode, and was like, oh, look, you're that's only one possible future. You could change the outcome. I was like, man, get out of here. Like, let it be. Like,
well, I think though that can live with your theory, because if time all exists in a sphere from that centerpiece, why can't there be multiple spheres?
That could also be true. But again, but it's all happening. If you could get to that center point, it's all happening from the same, because the center of a sphere is equidistant to every other point in the sphere. Right.
Mm-hmm.
So all points of time are equidistant from where you are. Yeah, I'm breaking some physicist minds out there, but trust me, folks, the physics lines up on it.
Brent is like literally like has paper and degrees and stuff for this stuff. Like, people don't know that about you, but you're a highly educated person. It doesn't show at all.
What's that phrase? We use this in football. He's forgotten more about this than I'll ever know.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
I think I've forgotten more about it than I will ever know, to be honest with you. Jeff, what about you? What do you think this episode's going to be about?
God, I feel like an idiot with my prediction right now, because I'm thinking so much smaller. And I guess what I'll do, I'll offer this as counterpoint, right? Because I want so much for what you're saying to happen. I just think it's so soon. I think this is going to be a Minbari and Earth thing, and that the war without end is the Earth Minbari war.
Oh, it's flaring back up.
Yeah, the warrior cast is upset, right? Delenn broke the council. There's 4 of them. This is going to set them up. In fact, this is what I think is going to happen. This is going to set them up for that alliance with the shadows that we talked about a while ago, where the warrior cast will line up with them, thinking they can just wipe out Earth. But it's all going to launch when it'll be Naroon. Yeah, Naroon is going to come onto the station, and he's going to basically say, we're here for Delenn. Like, you have to handle, she's a criminal. She's broken up our government, and we're going to try her, and you have to give her to us. He's going to go into Sheridan's office and while he's doing that, he's going to see that piece of the Black Star that Ivanova got him for Christmas last year. And he is going to lose his bone-crested mind. And he's going to use that to relaunch the war. And so I think we'll get the start of this being that. And then in the second part, well, we'll get to the predictions on the second part. But I think long-term, this is what gets the warrior cast lined up with the shadows and truly breaks Minbar.
I mean, that is a dangling thread that is still out there that has not been pulled on at all.
And barely mentioned.
Exactly. That, Jeff, okay, maybe I just jumped the gun, because Jeff, I have been holding on to this for so long. Like, I so want this to be what it is about. But it's probably a little smaller than that. So
in my mind, if you're right, this is it'll be episode 17 of this. So I think that's the rest of season 3, and probably the first 5 or 6 episodes of season 4. Because I mean,
I don't think that this gets wrapped up. I don't think this gets wrapped up in a 2-part episode.
No. Whatever happens in this 2-parter, I think whichever one of us is closer, it's 2 parts that sets up the next run.
Yeah, like this is what kicks off that final narrative. Like we're here at the top, we're here at the apex, and now here's everything that happens after it. Like, here's the war, here's how things start going bad before we pull out the Deus Ex Machina and win at the very end. You know, and then season 5 is that just sort of skating off. All right, where do we go next?
God, I'm excited to watch this now. I can't wait. I got to see what it is.
Are you sure we have to do this in 2 parts?
Yeah, we do. We really do.
Okay.
I'd say that now. Let me watch it. I'll get back to you.
You will text me.
Well, listen, I'll stand on my soapbox and tell everybody we're going to do this. Don't tell us to do it otherwise. But if you log on here next week and you see the whole thing done, don't be surprised. But here's the cool thing about that, right? We are every single one of us here is going to all have something to look forward to next week, right? You, the community, have to look forward to. Are we going to do it in 1 or 2 parts? Brent, you and I have some incredible episodes to look forward to right here on Babylon 5 for the first time. Thank you all so much for joining us for this conversation. If you haven't already, please subscribe or follow us wherever you're listening or watching, and leave us a review. Pop over to Apple Podcasts or Podchaser, Good Pods, any of those places, Audible. Leave us a rating and a review. I'll read it right here on the podcast. So Brent, Until next time. Oh, yeah. Hey.
Hey, did you get that text I sent you?
Is it the one that said that I'm supposed to refer to you as Londo in public now?
I have often told you that that's the character that I want to be and play and cosplay. So yeah, you could. What do you think? You like it? You good with it?
Sure. I mean, I can call you Londo, but like, can I still do I have to change your contact in the phone? Like, can I still just call you Brent when it's us?
Londo.
No, like just you and me. Like if we're just talking, can I just be like, hey, Brent?
Londo.
Well, all right, Londo. Peace, victory, and long life.
It's my first time.
Leadership, the final frontier. These are the voyages of the Starfleet Leadership Academy. Its ongoing mission to develop leaders through Star Trek. To boldly go where no podcast has gone before. A leadership development podcast told through the lens of Star Trek. The Starfleet Leadership Academy. Available everywhere you listen to podcasts.